But this view fails to take into account the difference between office and jurisdiction. In a kingdom, many may have the power to act with the power or authority of the government, like local judges, city officials, governors, etc. But only the king has ultimate control. Yet, the local officials have legitimate authority that in many ways mirrors the king's authority. If the local judge sentenced a prisoner to death, that sentence would be carried out with very little discernible difference than if the king himself had ruled the man guilty and deserving of execution. The sentence would be carried out all the same in the end. In ancient kingdoms, particularly the Davidic kingdom, the king had a chief steward or prime minister, sometimes called the master of the palace, who operated on the king's behalf and with the king's authority. This was the role played by Joseph in Genesis 41 when Pharaoh says to him, quote, "You shall be in charge of my household and all my people will obey your command. Only in respect to the throne will I outrank you." In Daniel 6, under the rule of Darius, it was his pending appointment to be prime minister that incited the jealousy of the other governors. Quote, "Daniel outshone all the ministers and satraps because an extraordinary spirit was in him, and the king considered setting him over the entire kingdom." In the Davidic kingdom, we see the same office in operation. 2 Kings 15 verse 5 says, quote, "The Lord afflicted the king, and he was a leper until the day he died. He lived in a house apart, while Jotham, the king's son, was master of the palace and ruled the people of the land." The prime minister or chief steward or master of the palace role was to rule the kingdom in the king's absence and exercise the king's authority on his behalf. Perhaps the most striking scriptural reference to this office is in Isaiah 22, where the Lord deposes Shebna from his role as master of the palace and replaces him with his chosen alternative, Eliakim. In verses 19 through 24, we read, quote, "I will thrust you from your office and pull you down from your station. On that day I will summon my servant Eliakim, son of Hilkiah. I will clothe him with your robe, gird him with your sash, confer on him your authority. He shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. I will place the key of the house of David on his shoulder. What he opens, no one will shut. What he shuts, no one will open. I will fix him as a peg in a firm place, a seat of honor for his ancestral house. On him shall hang all the glory of his ancestral house, descendants and offspring, all the little dishes from bowls to jugs." Now notice the key line, quote, "I will place the key of the house of David on his shoulder. What he opens, no one shall shut, and what he shuts, no one shall open." Now let's compare it with Jesus' words in Matthew 16, quote, "I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Jesus specifically uses language which strongly echoes the Isaiah 22 passage with striking similarity regarding the conferring of the office of the master of the palace, the chief steward who handles kingdom affairs in the king's name or on the king's behalf when the king is away. I would like to draw your attention to just 2 verses later. After conferring this office on Peter, in Matthew 16 verse 21, we read, quote, "From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer greatly from the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised." This is more than a clever parallel. It's a natural typological resonance if Jesus is consciously framing his kingdom in Davidic terms. Jesus, using kingdom administration imagery that strongly echoes Isaiah 22, makes immediate sense if he's establishing a steward-like office under the king. After all, Jesus is the new David restoring the Davidic kingdom. If he is the king and the 12 are the tribal judges, the kingdom requires the office of the Al-Habayit, which means the one over the house. By using the specific keys imagery of Isaiah 22, Jesus is telling his disciples, and us, that the structure of his new kingdom will not be a chaotic democracy, but a restored and perfected version of the Davidic order, complete with a visible representative who governs the household until the king returns.